I am so glad you convinced me that the family car should be the Defender 110. It is so beautiful inside, it's so comfortable, and it just feels indestructible.
Yes, it really is. I've been waiting a long time for the new model to come out. The Defender 110, I'm telling you, it's my favorite car of all times. It's my third one. You know, I have stories of going off road. The guy managed the group. He was like, "What are you doing in this beautiful car?" I'm like, "I'm going off road." He's like, "Are you sure? Because you can use one of ours." And then they look like Mad Max cars. I'm like, no, we're going to do this. And he was shocked.
Wow. Well, it's great because the Defender has been reimagined for 21st century adventure, and its unparalleled off-road ability as well as its robust interior are invaluable whether you're headed towards uncharted territory or just a weekend of exploration. The Defender 110 tackles challenging surroundings with absolute confidence. The SUV conveys strength outside and in, featuring peerless technology like an intuitive driver display and an award-winning infotainment system. That's my favorite part, to keep you connected no matter where the journey takes you. Adventure is unique to everyone, and so is the Defender. Choose from the two-door Defender 90, the four-door Defender 110, or the larger Defender 130 with the ability to seat up to 8 passengers. You'll find uncompromising performance in all three. So pack up and go even further with the Defender 110. Learn more at LandRoverUSA.com/Defender.
These days, we're all investors, trying to be smart with our money despite our worst impulses. But at iShares, we believe that deep down inside of every investor is a better investor. One that's just waiting to be let out. Explore iShares ETFs and insights and let your best investor out. Visit iShares.com for more information.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is the James Altucher Show. Today on the James Altucher Show.
This man needs no introduction. He started a tiny little computer company out of his dorm room, and it just kept growing from there. Micahel Dell from Dell Computers. Enjoy. Micahel Dell, author of Play Nice But Win, a CEO's journey from founder to leader. And also you may have heard of a small little company he named after himself because he's got a huge ego. It's called Dell Computer. Micahel, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, James. Great to be with you.
Micahel, this book is like not only a book about entrepreneurship, but I feel like it's a how-to on deal making. You went through so much with all sorts of hedge fund activist battles with Dell through the years. But I really want to start with the beginning and then go to the end also, because I'm curious about some things. I'm always fascinated by your iconic story of how you started. You're literally the college student entrepreneur's dream come true. Build shit in your dorm room and make $1 billion doing it. So like, how did it all start?
I was a freshman at the University of Texas. It was kind of the dawn of the microprocessor age. IBM had introduced the first PC in 1981. It was kind of 1983 when I went off to college. And the markups on the PC relative to the cost of the components were really high.
So like an IBM PC, if I remember correctly from back then, was something like $2,000 or $3,000.
Yeah, it was about $3,000, and when I took it apart, it looked to me like it was $500 worth of parts.
So why did you take it apart? That's unusual thing number one.
I've been doing that since I was a little kid. You can't understand things unless you take them apart, and so I would always take things apart. So I took it apart, and I was interested in math and science and physics and electronics and all that stuff as a kid. Also interested in business and economics and figuring out how to make some money. So this $500 worth of parts they were selling for $3,000 kind of seemed like a criminal enterprise. So I started upgrading more basic versions of the PC, started doing that in my dorm room. That's actually how the company started, by making kits to upgrade the original IBM PC to add hard drives, and memory onto the PC.
And your initial customers were just like parents of your friends, or who? How did it amass to be enough customers that you thought to yourself, whoa, I could make some money doing this?
Interestingly, it was not the students. The students were not interested in having computers at that time, at least not the students that I was hanging around. So um, it was doctors' offices, lawyers' offices, small businesses.
How'd they hear about you?
Well, I started running little tiny ads like in the classified section of the local paper. And the other thing that was interesting was I was in Austin, which is the state capital, and turns out about 2 or 3 blocks away from my dorm room was the state government office where they would issue all the requests for bids for the state. And so I would, ride my bike over there and literally get the pieces of paper for all the things the state wanted bids on. And I would just start bidding on these things. And I won a bunch of them.
Like, what was an example? Give an example bid that you won.
It would be like, 10 upgrade cards for IBM PCs, or, 3 computers with monitors and that sort of thing. So I was selling to the state, I was selling to small businesses, and it got up to about $80,000 a month when I was in my dorm room. And I thought, hey, if I got an office, maybe I could 10X it.
I'm always just curious about that first moment when you thought to yourself, 80,000 a month. You might have thought to yourself, when I was doing a paper route, I was making $15 a week, and now I'm making 80,000 a month, and whatever the profits were.
Good point. That's revenue, not profit.
Right. But still, you had money. Were you thinking to yourself, this is going to be my job after college? Or were you thinking this is going to be a big business? Also, did other students know you were making this kind of money? And I know I'm kind of focusing on this. It's almost like I feel funny asking these questions, but they're honestly the things I'm really curious about.
It was pretty incremental and step by step. I wasn't out kind of advertising how well I was doing to my friends or roommates. Yeah, I mean, some of them might have had a little bit of a sense because I hired some of them to help out from time to time, but it just seemed like a great opportunity, too big to pass up. And where I went to school, University of Texas in Austin, you could take a semester off and go back to college. So I convinced my parents that would be okay.
And they were unhappy about it. Your mom was crying.
Oh, they were super unhappy. In the world that they came from, giving up the opportunity for a high quality education was like the most disastrous decision any person could make.
What did they want you to be?
A doctor. Like my father's a doctor, my older brother's a doctor, we got a bunch of cousins that are doctors, so I was supposed to be a doctor.
You tried for a little bit to heed their warnings or concerns or fears, but it just kept pulling you back in, so to speak.
In 1983, I was kind of, doing this while I was going to school, and my parents heard about it, and they became progressively more and more concerned about it. At one point, we had a kind of an intervention, which I talk about in the book, and they made me commit to stopping this and focusing on my studies, which I did for about 10 days. And it was kind of in those 10 days that I decided that, this wasn't just a fun little thing I was doing on the side to earn a couple of extra bucks. It was actually pulling me in a much bigger way. It was what I was passionate about, what I was excited about. I saw this great opportunity.
So it's interesting. It's almost like the struggle with your parents was a way to inform you of what you were truly passionate about.
For sure. I would say if my parents had not intervened, I might have just kept it as kind of a little hobby thing and kept going to school. I mean, I don't know, but it's very possible.
Well, what would, like, if a young person's listening to this and they're getting pressures from either parents or professors or friends. How do you maybe think about those pressures to find what's right for you as opposed to just, I mean, you did cave in a little bit, right? You went cold turkey, as you put it in the book, on computers for 10 whole days. But still, there must be some way to navigate all the disparate elements that try to persuade us that their way is the right way. And I'm not, and they do it with the best of intentions. But like you found your way through that maze, how do other people do it? How would you suggest other people do it?
I think everybody's got to find their own way, maybe a little differently. I do get occasionally angry letters from parents, because I'm a bad example because I dropped out of college. But look, I think you have to risk adjust the decision. All right. I was in a situation where I saw tons of upside, and the downside was I just go back to college. Right. So, and if you got nothing, you got nothing to lose. So where are you in that process, and how big of a risk really is it?
And I think college was a lot different then than now, in the sense that it was cheaper then. I mean, the cost of college and tuition has gone up
It
faster
was
than
it was very
inflation.
cheap. It was like 400 or $500 a semester or something like that. It was insanely great value.
Right now, kids who want to be entrepreneurs after college, they sometimes get into $100,000 or $200,000 amount of debt. Is And I'm not asking you to make a huge stance here, but is college maybe not the same choice now that it was then? And this is not a podcast about college or anything. I'm just curious. Is the decision making about going to college and getting into that kind of debt must be different now?
Well, certainly, even adjusted for inflation or anything else, it's quite a bit more money. So you would be right about that. I mean, I certainly can't give generic advice about should people go to college or not go to college, right?
I think you can, but you're reluctant to. But that's okay.
Yeah, I'm probably reluctant to.
uh, so as you were building the business, there were other well-known entrepreneurs building their businesses, and Malcolm Gladwell famously all sort of categorized you, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs as being born around the same time. He was making the argument to some extent that the computer industry, a lot of the entrepreneurs would have been entrepreneurs probably no matter what, had the brains, the instincts, the guts. But with the computer age, everybody was sort of at the right place at the right time in those early 80s when there was the huge markups and computers were, the young kids were getting into it. 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds. You all started businesses, Microsoft, Apple, other companies, and you all dropped out of college and had similar experiences. When did you first start interacting like with the Bill Gates and Steve Jobs of the world? Like when did you buy the Windows DOS for MS-DOS for the Dell Computers?
So Bill and Steve were about 10 years older. I went and saw Steve in 1980 when I was in high school. He came to Houston and gave a talk, at like the Apple user group, and and then met him in 1985, the year after I'd started the business. Got to know him sort of during his exile period, a bit more, when he was doing Next and the Next operating system and trying to get us to license the Next operating system. And Bill, yeah, it was early because you couldn't, when we started building our own PCs, which was the year after we started, or I started, 1985. Yep, we licensed. It wasn't Windows. It was DOS, right?
Yeah.
and so we worked with Microsoft, worked with Bill, from the start.
Oh my gosh, I love these clothes. Mizzen and Main. That's Mizzen and Main. It really is the most comfortable work clothes. Travel clothes. I had to travel this whole week. I'm traveling for a week and a half, and I just took Mizzen and Main clothes with me. Close out 2023 in style with comfortable, breathable, packable, and machine washable pieces from Mizzen and Main. As you wrap up your year-end goals, enjoy a Mizzen and Main dress shirt that you can wear confidently. I like that they've very just nice, solid colors. I don't really like to get all fancy in patterns and everything, although they do have some pattern shirts, but very comfortable clothes, stretchable pants. It's just super comfortable, but they look professional and you can wear them casually or professionally. I like some of their flannel shirts or untuck shirts. I love untuck. I never tuck in. So again, whether you're shopping for a special someone or giving yourself the gift you really want, I just buy myself gifts. Mizzen and Main is the perfect gift for any guy who works, travels, and or cares about looking and feeling great. As you could tell by my many photos across the internet, I care about looking fantastic. I'm practically a model. And let's be honest, every guy loves to look great. So again, shop now at mizzenandmain.com and save 20% when you spend $130 or more using promo code James. That's promo code James at Mizzen and Main, Mizzen and Main.com. You know what I love about fantasy sports is that even though I'm not going to be a great basketball player or a baseball player or a football player or whatever, I feel like I get to participate and make decisions and use my knowledge of these different leagues or these different sports to compete. So it's like I can pick my team or I can pick my favorite players and I could use my knowledge to make predictions and maybe even make money. So with the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League on Prize Picks. This is a league created specifically for combo projections that include two or more players from different sports or leagues. Want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz, who's also been a guest on this podcast, and I've been a guest on his? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries for some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. Look, Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. What? So I love playing it. I love anywhere where I can use analytical ability with my interests to demonstrate some skill and maybe make some money. And I like the game-like aspect. I do wish they had chess as a category on prizepicks.com, but I'll settle for what they've got. Maybe I should make my own fantasy chess league. But in any case, I love Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/James. Use code James for a first deposit match up to $100. That's the easiest $100 you're ever going to make. So that's prizepicks.com/James and use code James. Daily fantasy sports made easy. The future of learning is definitely online. Like, it's such BS that you have to spend $200,000 or take $200,000 in loans and go to some fancy school when it's useless. It doesn't guarantee you a job. Most employers, including me, do not care about degrees or grades or anything like that. We want to care that you love what you're doing, that you know what you're doing, in some cases that you have experience or that you're willing to learn. But people in general love learning and are curious. Like, the key to success is curiosity. And I think masterclass.com is the perfect model for online learning. I'm really happy they're sponsoring this episode. If you're going to give a gift, give the gift of learning. Masterclass makes a meaningful gift this season for you and anyone on your list, because both of you can learn from the best to become your best, from leadership to effective communication to cooking. Let me tell you some of the classes I've taken. I've taken comedy from Steve Martin. I mean, can you believe I can take a class from Steve Martin on comedy, or Judd Apatow, my favorite comedy director? I could take an actual class from him on writing. Wolfgang Puck on cooking. Dan Brown on writing, or Judy Bloom, who's been on this podcast,
on writing. By the way, Wolfgang Puck also has been on this podcast. It's such a pleasure. I try to take classes all the time from masterclass.com. And whether you're watching Masterclass on TV or listening in audio mode in the app or on their site, the quality speaks for itself. It's like these Masterclass instructors are your own personal mentors that are going to help you reach the next level. How much would it cost to take one-on-one classes on comedy from Steve Martin or on chess from Gary Kasparov? You just wouldn't be able to do it. But it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. With a Masterclass annual membership, it's $10 a month. Memberships start at $120 a year for unlimited access to one-on-one classes with all 180 plus Masterclass instructors. So it's not just $120 for one instructor. You get all 180 plus Masterclass instructors. Boost your confidence and find practical takeaways you can apply to your life and at work. And if you own a business or are a team leader, use Masterclass to empower and create future-ready employees and leaders. That's the real education in today's world. So this holiday season, you can give one annual membership and get one free at masterclass.com/JAS. JAS, of course, stands for the James Altucher Show. So right now you can get two memberships for the price of one at masterclass.com/JAS. Masterclass.com/JAS. Offer terms apply.
So you were looking for an operating system. A lot of the IBM PCs and the family were obviously going with MS-DOS. Were there really any other choices at that time, or was MS-DOS kind of what you did?
If you wanted to make an IBM compatible, it was MS-DOS. There was CP/M, which was another operating system. If you wanted to build a more powerful workstation or server, you would use Unix, which you licensed from AT&T at the time. But yeah, for an IBM compatible PC, it was certainly MS-DOS.
And then when did you decide to start getting into other computer appliances like, storage and larger, more enterprise ready computers? Like at what point did you decide, okay, consumer is not enough, we need to go big or go out?
So interestingly, really from the first days of the company, most of our revenue was not from consumers. It was from other businesses, and even in the first year, I mean, we were selling to local businesses and then national businesses, and so it really was like an 80-20, like 80% business to business and 20% business to consumer. And then as we got into the late 80s, we tried to get into the server business, but we were too early. Didn't quite have the right product market fit to hit it. But we came back after it in the mid 90s. But business customers, kind of from the beginning, were the main driver, and then we started expanding internationally, with the UK and then across Europe and then over to Asia and Latin America.
Yeah, and then you decided to go public, which is a very, the book is a fascinating story of Wall Street also, and kind of the characters you meet on Wall Street are very different than your customers. And they're very different than shareholders. Some of these people are out for blood when they aim at you. And it's a very riveting story how later on when you were public, various activist hedge funds, including Carl Icahn, didn't like you or just felt there was some opportunity for themselves to make money. And it sounded like that was very personally difficult for you. Like they didn't want you to be CEO. They had lost faith, and they ostensibly had lost faith in the company and were fighting you for it. Like, how did that come about? I mean, you describe in the book, but I'm asking the story.
So, the company through 2010, 2012 was really evolving itself in new ways. And we were investing heavily in software and services and cloud and data center, all kinds of new capabilities. And it was expensive, right? We were acquiring companies, we were building R&D, and as we did that, it depressed our earnings, and we were thinking about the business, a bit longer term, but the shareholders weren't, and the business was still largely thought of as a PC business, even though we had a pretty meaningful server and data center and other kind of software and services businesses. So the result of that was that the stock kind of went down, right? And um, at some point, it got to a price where it was like, wow, we should just do a massive share buyback. We should buy back all the shares and go private and really accelerate this transition that we're on and go faster. If the shareholders don't really like what we're doing, let's give them a significant premium on the price, and so they get paid for some. They get paid some of what they would potentially get if we were successful, but they don't take on any of the risk. And so we started that process, and after it was started, Icon, he didn't own any shares before that process. He sort of read through the documents and said, "Oh wow, there's a really odd voting standard here, and if I do this and that and the other thing, I can get in there." And really, what he was angling for was to be bought out at an even higher price. And so there was a pretty epic battle that went on for 7 or 8 months, and media covered it extensively. There were tons and tons of stories almost every day about the battle, and ultimately we got through that and got to the other side. But yeah, I mean, there were definitely some dark moments, and uh, you know Icon is this guy who would pretty much say anything. Uh, you know, I mean, like untruthful stuff, definitely manipulative, and basically it's the green mail tactic that he's been known for.
I once read that he would schedule his negotiations in the evenings and he would sleep all day, knowing that the people he was going to be negotiating with were working all day. So they would be tired and a little bit drained and not as mentally acute, while he would be just waking up and fresh and ready to negotiate. So he had a toolbox of strategies like that.
Yeah, and the book opens with a fairly dramatic story about me going to see him at his apartment in New York City, and I ultimately figured out that he basically didn't know anything about our company, didn't know whether we made French fries or nuclear reactors, didn't really care, and it was just a big poker game to him.
But it is interesting. Like, I look at companies like Dell, and you were there every step of the way through, from the beginning of the PC era, of course, till now. And I always wonder, why did it take new people to develop a search engine like a Google or a Yahoo or an Amazon? Or why didn't any of those first initial computer companies innovate in that direction when the internet first got mainstream? Like, why did it require new blood to start these companies? Like, no, there's no major internet brand that was started internally at a large computer company.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's probably something about single purpose and focus. There's certainly plenty of projects and skunk works, and everybody knew about the internet. There were interesting things going on, but for the real breakout successes, I mean, I think it's 100% focus with a kind of passionate leader, entrepreneur. You don't tend to see those things coming inside large organizations.
But like define focus, because even Dell from the beginning, like you said, was you were doing consumer, you were doing enterprise, you were doing servers, now you do storage and other, you do everything in the hardware space, basically. And Amazon's a good example of their sort of focus, but it's not just books. Then it became clothes. Then it became AWS and cloud services and all these other things. Like, people scale in different ways. And so define, what does focus mean? Because I feel like it could be wrongly used as well by entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I mean, I think when a business is starting, it's really got to hone in on something that's going to stick and hit, and be super successful. And so that requires a kind of myomaniacal, just intense passion to understand it and to nail that one thing. And that's a pretty powerful force. Now, of course, most of those companies fail, right?
Yes.
But,
Right. It's sort of what's a selection bias. We only know the ones that succeeded, not the thousands that failed.
Yeah, and of course there were plenty of search engines, before Google, et cetera.
Yeah. What was the first search engine that you used?
Would have been like Alta Vista, I guess then Yahoo. I mean, I remember, of course we had the internet back in the 80s. What we didn't have was the World Wide Web, and then we had the Mosaic browser. Originally, you couldn't even run it on Windows. You had to have a Unix machine. And so I'd set that up, and we were enthralled with the World Wide Web because it was a fantastic way for us to display our products and connect with the customer, because we were in the business of sending out all these catalogs and getting people to call us on the phone. And now it was like, wow, you could put all this on this website and then people would click and buy. It was like a dream, so we jumped all over that. And obviously it was a massive accelerator to growth, from kind of the mid 90s, forward.
Also available today is part 2. Micahel Dell from Dell Computers talks about what happened when he tried negotiating with Steve Jobs and what does the future hold, including the future of Bitcoin.
Thanks to generous community support, Wounded Warrior Project has helped post 9/11 veterans and their families since 2003. Through no-cost physical and mental health services, legislative advocacy, career assistance, and life skill training, we're there every step of the journey.
It's possible to feel understood.
To get support when it's needed most.
And now I know anything is possible.
And we're just getting started. Learn more at woundedwarriorproject.org/together.